All right. So here's the first question I want to ask, right? Is what is the most important thing and lesson you can get out of video games?
Don't give up.
It's funny because I thought about this real deep. Like, a lot of people think like you can't get crap out of video games, but you can. And one thing I learned is the biggest lesson takeaway I could get out of video games is you learn about yourself. You learning about yourself,
Yeah.
I think, is the most important thing in video games. An example I have is like in life, I didn't know how stingy I was until I played video games. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would do certain things like just to save and save and save. I would save all these tools and I would never use them. Because, there might be that day I need to use it like a hoarder, but nah, I never use them. And what I actually do is it rusts or molds, or the profit that I could make from using that tool, let's just say it's 500 million. And without the tool, I get 200 million an hour. And the tool's only worth like 100 million. So when it comes to like time and efficiency, I am not using my time wisely. It's more beneficial to use the tool, but I had this like scarcity mentality of like stinginess that I learned about me. To let that go, I need to unlearn that and start using the tools because my time now is more important than the tool. Any other thoughts?
No, I agree with that. Or you hold it on for too long and it goes down in value. So you should have let it go earlier. Plus, I also learned it doesn't exist. None of it really exists. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros. So you can't not let it go, or you can't really keep it. So enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think you make a good point. Is that video games kind of show us something that we don't get to see? Like the thing that whenever someone says video games are a waste of time, and if you guys are having a hard time hearing me, let me know.
No, we hear you
But one
clearly.
thing that what I learned is I play. Oh, thank you. I play a lot of real time strategy. Like I don't know if it was Cityscapes. I think that's more the last one that I really played. Games like that. And the one thing that I took out from that, and just other games that I played, is that we kind of move through life at it feels like a very very slow pace. It's not. It's a really fast pace. We just don't comprehend everything. But in a video game, you can lead. You can do 100 years, a simulation of 100 years at that point, and see how you're going to react to multiple different scenarios. Like I take it for money. Like when it comes to, building something up, how to best utilize your money, what to do in this scenario, things like that. I'm not going to have $1 billion to spend, but in a video game, I can actually do something in that scope where it's going to show me how my intentions, what I want to do, my first idea that I have doesn't work. Okay, that didn't work. All right, now I get to problem solve. I'm going to run another simulation here. I'm going to see what if I build these roads differently. What if I go instead of building really nice roads to just really easy dirt roads that don't eat up a lot of income, things like that. I think that's one of the benefits is that it shows us a lot more about life if we actually view it from that scope. Yeah, obviously I can sit there and I can zone out, but at the same time, it can also hone my ability to problem solve. It can actually give me I can sharpen that tool in my mind that's going to help me when I do tackle something in the real world. I can be like, wait. There's a way to do this. How do I, what's the first issue that I have? What's working on that? How do I dispense down, the steps that I need to take to actually be successful here? I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on, or they just kind of write it off as, video games are just for fun. Video games are just for that. Honestly, it's your brain exercising. And the best part is that it's ones and zeros. So it's not life or death. So you get to run it as much as you want, try it differently, try the story differently, see how things are, see what you really can do, because you're going to be put in scenarios that you're not necessarily going to be in regular life. I think that's one of those things that people miss out on when they say, I don't like video games. Like, well, did you play with toys as a kid? Well, yeah, I played with toys. I mean, that's the same thing. Like your toys talked to each other, interacted. Those are the interactions you didn't have as a kid. Like when you played with G.I. Joes, you're not a soldier, but you didn't have interactions together with your toys. That's kind of how our brain works. When we allow our brain to kind of start mapping out all these crazy possibilities, we strengthen a muscle that can really be helpful in our everyday lives, our problem solving, critical thinking, just overall, trying to understand a situation and how it works. I think that's something that's like one of those overlooked benefits of playing video games. So yeah, I mean, what you're saying is true. Like you're in a situation where you can't, let's say you're at 19, do you have $1 million that you can just sit on? It's not a lot of people do, but in a video game, you can kind of see how that would work for you. If any of that makes sense.
It's a simulation to implement real life without the damage.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. The brilliant part about it is like it's a safe environment to make mistakes and fail without getting consequence in this simulation. That's another
those
benefit.
benefits. I mean, that's like you look at the U.S. military; they're leaning heavily. Like, there's a lot of squad movement drills they do that are connected to, it's almost like a giant video game. You can't always get the area. You can't always live fire. The thing that you need to work on is your communication, the basics, of the team. It needed a small, contained environment. I mean, that in and of itself, as much as they want to act like it's not a video game, it's the same process. It's the same system. Situations that pop up, the whole video plays itself out. How your reaction is how you are graded. That's one of the things. That's one of the benefits. And honestly, it's much cheaper. You're not spending ammo. People aren't out in the terrain getting hurt. You're not. You don't have to pull in another squadron of people to play the bad guy. You can continue to do it and get the repetitions that you're not going to get. And you need those. Don't get me wrong. You still need those live, exercises. But to build the foundation of things in the military, doing it through, VR, doing it through video games, doing it through whatever it is, helps with a lot of things that you need to do over and over again. May not have the time to continually reset up. I mean, if people miss that, I don't know what to tell them at that point.
I know they did a study and they found that people who play video games make better split-second decisions because you make them so often. Like you said, you train that part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Reaction time too, yeah.
Yep.
Reaction, and I think a lot of like, let's take being a kid. I remember when I was a kid, the NES came out, and there was a lot of like, let your kid play video games before school, because then they're gonna. It's like, oh, it's not just the ones and zeros flashing up on the screen. It doesn't matter what the game is. Doesn't matter what's going on. It's the brain being utilized, and I think that's one of those things why your split second decisions are faster. You're utilizing those connections and those synapses that just for a regular kid who didn't have that type of exposure.
We're losing you a bit. I heard exposure, bro. We're losing you a bit. I heard exposure.
It sounds robotic.
Yeah.
So
okay,
my bad.
A little bit better. We hear you better.
Yeah.
Maybe your phone just needs to cool
Can you hear
down.
me now?
Yeah, better.
I'm in Irvine, and for being the city of the future, its connection sucks. So
No
let me get
problem.
out of the city.
No problem. I'm
But
just grateful
yeah,
for your time, bro. We even heard gold
hey,
bars so far.
eh, but yeah, as I'm saying, it's like you take that stimulation that just kids aren't going to get. Moms and dads love them to death. They're a big part of a kid's life. I mean, you can only interact with a child so much to stimulate their brains in comparison to a video game. That's just the raw truth. This is why
Yeah.
people. This is why there's those little mobiles over a kid's bed. It's not there to just entertain them. It's also there to stimulate them, get them thinking about things. That's why you have bright colors and different types of shades of colors in your kids' bedroom because you want them to be stimulated and have their brain develop. I mean, brains don't develop just by not being stimulated. That's, I think, something that our regular education system wishes would be, and probably provided enough stimulation back then, but it doesn't. And they're learning that, and it's scary because if I can learn something, if a person can interact with me better through a video game, through a YouTube video, that person who sits there sipping coffee, telling people that they're wrong, their job is definitely in danger at that point. But that's a totally different story for a different time. I
Yeah.
think just the interaction, the stimulation that you get from video games, I still think we haven't even really tapped into the full benefits
We
for
haven't.
mankind through it.
That's
To be
why
very
Facebook
honest.
is doing metaverse and all that. Like, you know.
Yeah.
The
Well,
other thing I
because
like,
again, also stimulation is addictive too. I think that's something that metaverse is picking up on also. But I'm sorry, I cut you off, man. What were you saying?
Yeah. Thank
no,
you. That's me.
I was going to say I really enjoy listening to people from all over the world. The mix of cultures is quite amazing compared to what we used to have.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had to take a 24-hour plane flight to get somewhere just to be exposed to a different culture. Now you just jump on a channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a good amount of time, like the only time you met other people is when you went to go kill them. Like that was a good portion of human existence. Like it wasn't. People didn't learn about those cultures until they were destroying it. So like now we can actually talk, have conversations, listen to somebody explain out their entire thing. That's awesome. Like that's even though we can't always travel, I mean, it's expensive still at times for most people. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.